Hey there. This isn't an audio roleplay. This is an audio, but I'm not acting. I'm just being myself, talking directly to you, because today, September 30th, is the 5-year anniversary of Urban Nymph Audios. I started this channel on this date in 2019, which feels like a really long time ago. That was before COVID, remember that time? I was living in Florida. I was in a bad relationship, which fortunately I got out of a few months later. And since then, a lot has changed. For all of us, I think. So I thought I would talk to you about the channel, how it came about, and where you fit into the future of this adventure that we're on, because we are on it together. Some of this you might have heard before, especially if you came to any of my very early YouTube streams, my Q&A streams, stuff like that. And some of it I've talked about over on Twitch as well. I actually tend to get a little more personal when I talk during Twitch streams, and this audio might get a little personal too. I use my own experiences as teachable moments, especially when I'm trying to model healthy relationships or warn you guys off the unhealthy ones. So trigger warning, I will be talking a bit about toxic dynamics that I personally experienced. But all this is part of the story that led to Urban Nymph Audios being a thing. So settle in and enjoy some slightly ASMR talking about the lore of Urban Nymph Audios. So, way back in early 2019, I was watching a lot of anime. I had gotten into anime a couple years before that, actually, but it was early 2019 that it started to influence my YouTube recommendations. YouTube, in its infinite wisdom, was like, oh, you like anime, here are some audio roleplays with anime characters in the thumbnails. And these were established properties, like My Hero Academia and Black Butler. I didn't watch Black Butler, but I recognized the intellectual property. So I clicked on one of those and was like, oh, this is interesting. No visual content at all, just talking. But it's telling a story, and I'm a part of it. I thought it was pretty cool, very niche, and of course then YouTube was like, oh, you like audio roleplays? Here are a bunch more audio roleplays. And now I was getting recommended things like relationship audios, comfort audios, things like that. And at the time, I was already very familiar with ASMR content. I had some favorite ASMR artists like Gentle Whispering and Ephemeral Rift, and I would put them on to listen to when I went to sleep at night. So listening to soothing content was already something I did a lot of. But these audio roleplays were different. Some of them had ASMR components, but not all of them. Some were just stories, and some were clearly a form of wish fulfillment. What it would sound like to have a loving, caring partner. I liked them. I thought they were pretty interesting, but then one day I was going through the catalog of one creator I liked, and I stumbled onto an audio about aftercare. There was nothing sexual in the audio. Honestly, there was nothing sexual in any audio I listened to, but the scene was one where the speaker was looking after the listener immediately after a sexual experience. I listened to it, and I broke down crying. I just fell apart. And not because anything in it was particularly triggering. It was just a nice voice asking me what I wanted to drink and offering to brush my hair and just being very proactively caring. But I realized in that moment that I didn't have that in my life, despite being in a relationship at the time. This is where it gets a little personal, so please bear with me. My relationship at the time, I was living with a guy who claimed to be in the BDSM lifestyle. Nothing wrong with that. Everyone has things they're into. When I first started seeing him, he told me this about himself, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm down to try things, but don't we need a safe word? And he laughed and said, no, we don't. That right there should have been a massive red flag. I should have walked away, and if you're listening to this and you have a partner who doesn't respect the need for a safe word, please distance yourself from that. It's a terrible thing to say, and it's a lack of respect for the other person. Anyway, at the time I didn't know anything, and I thought, well, he's in the life, he knows best, I trusted him. It turned out he didn't know what he was talking about, big surprise. And he also didn't know what aftercare was, which, that is really important in just about every intimate scenario, not just BDSM. It's a vital psychological step in keeping a situation healthy. He didn't do any of that. So when I heard this aftercare audio, I burst into tears because I was like, is that what it's supposed to be? Is that how it's supposed to go? Is this what I've been missing? I was shook, like legitimately shook. I went down a rabbit hole of research, learned how important aftercare is, all of that. So then I was like, how do I bring this up to my partner? How do I ask him to start doing this thing that he should have been doing all along? I started by sending him the audio. I was like, I think this is something I need from you. He didn't listen to it. I was at a loss. And yes, I realize now that all of these points were places at which I should have left, but I didn't. I kept mistaking his lack of care for lack of knowledge. So I thought, how do I make him understand? I went to Reddit and I made a post on one of the BDSM subreddits asking how to bring up aftercare as a thing that I needed. People there were super helpful and they asked a lot of questions. And as I talked to them, they started to get more and more indignant on my behalf. They were like, he's not doing anything right. He's not a good partner. And I defended him for a while. I pushed back, saying, no, he cares about me. He just doesn't have all the information. But gradually I started to see their point. They were worried about me. These internet strangers were worried about me because I was in an unhealthy situation, a situation in which I could legitimately get hurt because I trusted the person I was with, and he was not a good partner. All of this, again, came about because I listened to a comfort audio. Isn't that wild how things fall into place sometimes? Anyway, I tried to talk to him again, and the outcome of that was basically nothing changed, except that if it looked like I was possibly upset or likely to cry after we were intimate, then he would hug me. That was literally it. So pro tip, while I have you here, aftercare is not contingent on someone's mood. It's not reactive. You dive in there and you give aftercare proactively. You do it before the other person has to ask. You do it before they have a chance to drop. You take ownership of that and you act immediately because that's part of your role. That person has trusted you with their safety, their vulnerability, and their psychology. You're responsible for all of that. So step up, make aftercare part of the process, do not hesitate, and do not act like it's a chore. Do not sigh and be like, ugh, you need a cuddle now? Fine. Do not do that. It is your privilege to provide that care to your partner. You're lucky that they trust you in that way, and you should be grateful for that. That's my soapbox about aftercare. My partner didn't do that. He just watched me like a velociraptor to see if I was about to burst into tears. Good times. So throughout this, I was still listening to audios and also getting involved in some creator communities. A few creators put out a call for scripts, and I was like, actually, yeah, I'm a writer. I like to write. That sounds like fun. Let me see what I can do. So I wrote a few scripts for a few VAs, and they liked them. They recorded them. They were well received. I felt pretty good about myself. Now, at this point, I'm not sure what happened. I had never been told I had a good voice. I took a few voice lessons in high school, but I never really performed for a crowd. When I was little, I was always the one who was asked to do readings for school, like when there was a Thanksgiving pageant in second grade and someone had to be the one to read the names of everyone in the class, but that was mostly because I could read and pronounce things clearly. So to this day, I have no idea why I went and bought a microphone. It was just a little $20 mic. It was total crap, but I was like, why not? I recorded my first audio and uploaded it to YouTube September 30th, 2019. I liked it. I liked how it felt to create something, and I liked how it felt to put myself out there. I didn't expect anyone to listen, but it still felt good to do it. Then it was October, and I threw myself into writing spooky content. That first month of audios, some of it is really not at all comforting. And I also uploaded a lot in those days. I was recording almost every day. I sat on the floor of a closet to record because the clothes helped to dampen the sound, and there were no vents in there to make noise. I talked into my little mic, and then I did my post-edits in Audacity, and I just kept uploading. And gradually, people were listening. I was getting subscribers. People seemed to like what I was making. It was fun. So when I reached 1,000 subscribers, I told my partner about this hobby. I specifically did not tell him the name of my channel, just that I was doing this thing and it was fun and it wasn't anything raunchy, just stories and comfort content. He, of course, wanted to know the channel's name, but I was like, no, I think I want to keep this part of myself private. This was a thing just for me. He acted like he understood that, but then unbeknownst to me, he started looking for the channel. I don't know if he got into my laptop or if he just searched for tiny baby VA channels until he found mine, but one day I got an alert of a new subscriber and it was him. I guess he didn't know that YouTube alerts you to new subscribers depending on your settings. And I think that was definitely the beginning of the end for me. The complete lack of respect for me and my boundaries made it very clear how little he actually cared. I got very angry with him, and it wasn't too long after that that everything else wrong with the relationship just bubbled up. I'd had enough, I was done with being treated the way he treated me, so I broke it off. He said some very unkind things in that time, which made it clear to me that I was making the right decision. Because, as I've said in audios before, you can't love someone and then do things to deliberately hurt them. It doesn't work that way. If you love someone, if you really care, then even when you're angry or upset at them, hurting them shouldn't be on your radar. You can want to communicate with them, maybe make them understand why you're upset, maybe try to get them to see just how upset you are, all that, but that doesn't mean hurting them back, especially not on purpose. Because it's so easy to hurt the people we love, isn't it? When you love someone, you give them the tools to hurt you. You're vulnerable, you open up to them, and you trust that they won't use that knowledge against you because they care about you. Anyone who says, oh yeah, I said that terrible stuff and I called you those terrible names, but I didn't mean it, I was just upset. Fuck off with that. I don't buy it, ever. And I will die on this hill. Okay, so back to the channel. Believe it or not, this is all written out, by the way. I wrote it out so I would make sure not to miss anything important, and I still can't resist a good tangent. Anyway, the channel kept growing. I opened up the Discord server and the Patreon, and the community began to take real shape. I kept the Discord to just patrons, and that's still a thing to this day because I had seen a few too many public Discords turn into cesspools, and I didn't want that. I wanted a cozy community that was a safe place for my patrons, and I wanted them to have that even if every other corner of the internet was a toxic wasteland. This was a perk for them, and also sort of for me. So we built it, and it's still going strong today, 5 years in. Every time a new person joins, they're welcomed with open arms. Anytime someone is having a rough day, everyone offers support and hugs. It's the healthiest little spot I could have imagined, and that's entirely due to those of you who joined as patrons and then came and joined the community as a whole. You make it what it is. And I'm honestly so proud of you for that, like, truly proud. So now the Discord is a nice place to hang out. We do movie nights, we do Foreign Food Friday, and I keep an eye on what you guys are up to. But as the channel grew, I wanted even more ways to connect with you, the listeners. So in July of 2020, nearly a year after starting the channel, I started streaming on Twitch. Again, it's something I still do to this day, a few times a week. I play a variety of games, sometimes I hold educational seminars on storytelling, but mostly I just vibe with you guys. I love that. I love being able to interact with you in real time. See what you're up to, chat back and forth. It means a lot to me. Sometimes I do go off on various topics, but you don't seem to mind that either, so that's good. Once I got the Twitch going, I made it so the Twitch subs also have access to the Discord, and that's been fun too. Lots of gaming happens there, especially Helldivers lately. You guys are really into Helldivers. Not complaining, I like it too. And I really like to see you all connecting and playing together. It's really cool to watch. I also set up a Twitter account, still use that too, mostly for ramblings and sharing pictures of nature here in Australia. Speaking of which, living here in Australia is something I never would have imagined I could do 5 years ago. I lived in Florida. I didn't super love it, but I was trying to make the world a better place. I was involved in activism and advocacy, but I was getting tired. COVID was a lot. I was working remotely for a payroll software company and also doing the channel, and everyone was just sort of worn out. So when there was some drama at my company and my boss, whom I loved, was forced out, I looked at my finances and realized I could live on just the income from the channel. So I took a leap. A family member of mine was moving to the UK for school, so I decided to tag along and get a flat and just stay there and see how it went. August of 2021, I did that. I had never lived outside the US before. It was a big change. Lots of things were different. But I kept working on the channel and I tried to embrace new experiences, and honestly, I loved it. I lived there for 6 months, which was the most I could live there without a visa. And then I came back to Florida in early 2022. From there, I was a little lost, not really sure where to go, but again, still chugging away on the channel and the streaming. Still making content no matter what continent I was on. I would sit on my parents' living room floor to stream, and I was on the floor of their guest room closet recording audios. Still writing every script and making every thumbnail and doing it all myself. Because it meant a lot to me to do it all myself. Maybe that's just pride, but you know what? That's how I am. Anyway, in this time while doing all this, I'd made a lot of friends online across the whole world. A lot of people I really love spending time with. It's kind of amazing how you can connect to people that you don't know in real life, isn't it? Like, I'm sure a lot of you can relate. So those connections eventually led me here to Australia, where I'd never even imagined I'd live. That was a little over 2 years ago, and I've been here ever since, and I like where I am. I miss my family sometimes, but in general, I think I'm in the right place. It's funny how life can take you to so many different places, and if you trace it backwards for me, it all goes back to an aftercare audio that I stumbled on in early 2019. Now, that's not to say there haven't been ups and downs. Sometimes doing this work has been very hard, very discouraging, very challenging. Some days I have writer's block or I don't feel like recording, and that's when the discipline has to kick in and make me do it. Because I really don't like missing an upload, and I try not to unless I'm physically away, like on a trip or something. And even then, I often bring my mic and record on the road. I recorded through COVID, I recorded in random spaces while traveling. The algorithm has not been kind to the channel since the first year. Sometimes the growth slows down until it's pretty much stopped. I change things up every few months, try new thumbnails and descriptions, make content that seems to be what people like, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's really hard to predict what's going to work on YouTube. It's almost impossible, honestly, but I keep trying. I try not to compare myself to other creators. It can be easy to be like, oh, they do less than I do, they upload less than I do, their audios are shorter than mine, how do they manage to have so many followers? The answer is there is no answer. Some people get luckier than others, but when I look at what I have, when I look at this channel and this following, I feel really, really lucky that you're here. I appreciate you so much. You're why I do what I do. Your comments, your likes, your suggestions, it's all really important to me. Also, the Patreon, it quite literally makes this channel possible. Without my patrons, I would probably have to stop making audios. Unfortunately, the Patreon support has declined over time, and I know there are a lot of factors that influence that: the economy, the cost of living, all these things. But I still try to make the Patreon as appealing as possible so that patrons know how grateful I am for supporting me in that way. That's why I offer a lot of different perks, from the Discord and the Hangouts with me to ringtones and exclusive merch and monthly rambles. That's why I started making one audio each week available just for patrons, because that's what people here on YouTube said that they would want in order to support me. Patron-only content. So it's a thing, every single week. Hasn't really changed anything as far as the support goes, but I'll keep making it. I did have to go back to work doing a day job earlier this year since the Patreon support wasn't enough to live on anymore. But I hope someday to get back to a place where I can stop doing the day job and focus entirely on making content again, because man, I really miss it. But for now, I'm still able to do the 2 audios a week, one public and one for patrons, plus the streaming and other special occasion things. And I've tried to diversify my support as much as possible, because I know not everyone likes Patreon. There's the Ko-Fi, Ko-Fi, I don't know how to pronounce that. And there's now the channel memberships, which give you the same extra content that patrons get each week, plus early access to public audios, so that's a pretty good program. It's the Sweetness Club here on YouTube. I like that. I like that it's an option that I can offer you. All this is linked in the description of each audio, so if you'd like to become a member or join Patreon or support me on Ko-Fi, check out those links. And know that I'm forever grateful to those of you that choose to support me in that way. I can't thank you enough, truly. And it really makes me happy when new people join the Discord or become part of our cozy little corner of the internet. I love it. I really do. So that brings me to now. 5 years in, nearly 40,000 subscribers here on YouTube, something like 750 audios live and a couple dozen on Patreon. And so much has changed. I'm not the same person I was at the start. I'm down some relationship deadweight. I'm as far from where I used to live geographically as I could possibly be. And I've seen places I never thought I'd see. But also, I'm still the same in a lot of ways, and I don't have any intention of slowing down. I love doing this work. I want to do it full time again. I love writing scripts, recording audios, telling stories, and reading your comments. And yes, I read the comments. I appreciate every bit of engagement you choose to share, because I know you don't have to. You don't have to listen to my stories. God knows there are a lot of creators on here to listen to. And you don't have to engage or like or leave a comment or support me financially. Every time you do one of those things, you're doing it as a kindness to me, to show me that you like what I do, and I'm grateful for that, more than you'll ever know. This work is the best work I've ever done, and I feel like I'm only getting better at it. Some of my more recent audios, I am more proud of those scripts than most of the earlier ones. I'm not remotely tired of this, and I hope you're not tired of listening. I hope you keep liking what I do. I hope you keep listening, because this channel is for you. It started as a place where I could scream into the void and hope someone was listening. It started as a creative outlet when I was unhappy and not entirely sure why. And over time, it's become something amazing. It's a community, a source of support and care and good vibes. It's something I can be proud of, and you should be proud of it too. It wouldn't be a thing without all of you. It wouldn't matter without you listening. I started with a cheap mic and no idea of how to do any of this, and your encouragement has brought me to here right now. 5 years. It sounds like so much. Although I'm still sitting on the floor of a closet to record, so I guess some things really don't change. But thank you. Thank you so much. Urban Nymph Audios is your channel, your community, your place to feel safe and cared for and supported by your fellow listeners. You're my people, and I'm so glad I found my people. I'm so much happier today than I was the day this all started, and that's because of you. Never forget how important you are, how special you are, and how much you mean to me and to this community. We got you. I got you. Thank you, my lovely goobers. Thank you times a million. Now, I'm going to sign off before I cry, but please, look after yourselves, be good, and I'll talk to you soon.